Hello, everyone. Actually, this is just maybe I'm going to do these every so often. These kind of on the spot. I'm waiting for my wife again, and so I have a little bit of free time. I wanted to talk about something. One of my one of the people who are on my site, I think she's a subscriber. She put out this thing showing Hillary Clinton. What's up, Rob? Hillary Clinton has this line in her book, man. I swear, this book just keeps on giving. It's awesome. It's absolutely awesome. I can't even be mad. I can't be upset. It's more comical than anything else. Hillary Clinton said there is no absolution for women that didn't vote for her. No absolution. And one of the things she said people would drag their daughters and say, apologize to Hillary Clinton. Apologize to this woman for not voting for this woman. And she says, I can't. She says, I forced the smile, but I can't necessarily apologize. It's amazing. It's amazing. There's no absolution for people who didn't vote for me. You failed multiple times. Make a video about the election conference from the People's Convergence. Election conference, what do you mean? Do you mean the election hacking part of the conference? Hey Rob, send me a message. I'll see what I can do. Yeah guys, I saw this clip. When I get home, I'm gonna car talk with Jamal, yeah, pretty much. Pretty much. When I get home, I'm gonna put the clip up of it's just an amazing statement. Hillary Clinton ran for president of the United States. In running for the president of the United States, she started that campaign being the most hated politician in this country's history. That's how she started the campaign. After starting the campaign as being the most hated politician in presidential history, there was somebody who was worse, Donald Trump. Now, she ran in a race, the two most hated politicians in the history of this country. And that's not even hyperbole. That's just that's just a fact. She writes in her book that people are apologizing to her for not voting for her. That is amazing. That is amazing. I'm sorry that I didn't vote for you, Hillary Clinton. I'm sorry. That's amazing. That's amazing. I don't know anybody else who wrote a book saying people were apologizing for not voting for that person. Those people must be so out of touch in regards to politics. Let's be honest. Donald Trump is a menace. I get it. Donald Trump is a horrible fucking person. I get it. Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton had no issue dealing with Donald Trump when they were earlier in politics. There are pictures of them smoozing and hanging about. So come on. Don't act like this man is a monster now that he's in office, but you guys were perfectly okay when he wasn't in office. It's fucking amazing. Just fucking amazing. People should apologize to her. There's no absolution for women who didn't vote for me. Blacks weren't sufficiently loyal. Hispanics weren't sufficiently loyal. There's a special place in hell for women that didn't vote for me. I'm Hillary Clinton. I am blameless. I'm blameless. I lost because of 1,000 other factors that had nothing to do with Hillary Clinton. That's fucking amazing. I want to write a book too. I want to write a book. I want to blame everybody in the book for everything that's ever going wrong in my life. You ran a really shitty campaign. You pretended as if America was stuck. Meaning, you know, I'm Hillary Clinton, I'm the savior of America, and it's my turn. The entire campaign was ran under this idea as if it's my turn. I don't understand why Bernie Sanders is in the race. It's my turn. The entire campaign was that way. The problem with Hillary Clinton is she didn't realize she was the only person who thought it was her turn. Nobody else thought that. Maybe the other Democrats, the rest of the public did not. You're not obligated to the office. It's not obligatory to vote for you. It's just amazing. Yeah, it's just amazing. You get people's vote when you represent their interests. If the situation was so bad where those people thought Donald Trump was a better candidate than you, one, that's embarrassing. And two, at that point, you should take the hint. You lost twice. You lost to a black guy with a Muslim name, and then you lost to reality show hosts. Writing a book, blaming everybody about why you lost to reality show hosts, looks immensely bad. It looks immensely bad. Hey, Red Economics. This isn't going to be long. My wife is coming out shortly. I saw that line and I thought to myself, how are you writing a book saying there is no absolution for women who didn't vote for me? I just found that amazing. I just find that amazing. I don't know if Democrats realize this. Maybe they realize it. I don't know if they realize it. Do you know, back during the Civil Rights era, with African Americans, Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, all these guys, people might have been terrified of Malcolm X, but ultimately, if it wasn't for Malcolm X, you wouldn't have gotten a Martin Luther King. One, the extreme made the other look more palatable. That being said, when the Democratic Party flipped and became more open to African Americans in that case, African Americans understood that the racists are in the other party. They're in the Republican Party. That's not the entire party, so don't misunderstand me. There is a faction of the country that, for the most part, lives and hides and, festers in that party. Fair enough, it's understood. From an African American standpoint, though, that became the party to vote for. When I was growing up, there was no two parties. There was one party. Your choice was a Democrat or just not voting. And ultimately, you always voted because you needed to get a Democrat in that office to keep the other maniacs out the office. That's the way African Americans vote. African Americans don't vote with this idea that there are multiple candidates. We vote with this idea that there's only one because the maniacs are in the other party. This is kind of why they ran in this particular way where Hillary Clinton was trying to hug every black person she could find. In doing so, however, she alienated whites. Now, there's a catch to this. It was embedded into the consciousness of African Americans, even going all the way back to the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, the 90s. Vote Democrat. What happens? What happens right now when they cheated Sanders? And you have an entire generation of people that understood that the Democratic Party cheated Bernie Sanders. That the Democratic Party did very bad things to progressives. What does that look like for an entire generation to go with that sentiment and that thought? So now for the next, 10, 15, 20 years, everybody has this idea in their head of what Democrats are. Meaning youth. Meaning the youth. All of those people who poured their heart out for Bernie Sanders, all of them, just pushing and struggling and hard, trying to get this idea of a better country. And they were shafted. They were cheated. Let's be honest, they were cheated. The Democratic Party took the opportunity to cheat those people. People spent $220 million on Bernie Sanders. You may call him a sheepdog, you may call him anything else. Take Bernie Sanders out of it for the moment. Assume for the moment that it wasn't Sanders. Assume for it there was somebody else that you absolutely love and absolutely like. They still cheated him. Whether you want to call him a sheepdog or not, he was still cheated. The process was still rigged. The process was still rigged. So you have an entire generation now realizing that the Democratic Party cheated the person that you yourself wanted to be in that office. I can't see myself voting Democrat again. I've voted Democrat my entire life up until probably the last election. Well, to be fair, I voted Ralph Nader before I got fully into politics. Gardner, you're right. They cheated and Sanders was complicit, period. I agree with you, he might have been complicit. Fair enough. I agree with you, he didn't push back. Fair enough. But keep honest, they did cheat him. The point I'm getting at is they did cheat him. That's what I'm getting at. That cheating is not just Sanders. That cheating is also us. That's also us. How many millions of people invested their time and cash into the election process in 2016? Millions. It was millions. In the public consciousness, when it was driven in this idea of healthcare, education, all of these ideas that were, for the most part, not talked about, not discussed. Sanders brought those things into the population's consciousness, and those people say, oh, this is awesome, we want this guy. They hit him in the knees. Over and over and over again, they hit him in the knees. You're right, Sanders should have said something about it. Sanders was complicit. Either complicit or naive, is one or the other. At this point, I don't necessarily care. I care more so about the fact he was cheated. This idea that there's no absolution for women, there is no absolution for Democrats. I don't think she realizes it. The wedge that they drove in the party destroyed that party. They have millions of people who are not going to vote for Democrats. And a lot of that is going to come from what took place in the primaries. If this was 2008, I suspect Kamala Harris would probably be loved. I suspect she would probably be loved. After 2008, after the Obama administration and after what took place to Sanders, the Democratic Party is going to have a hard way to go. The goal is not necessarily, look, ultimately the goal is to win. But you don't need, how can I say this? You don't need necessarily a majority right off the bat to win. You just need enough to make them lose. Yeah, you just need enough to make them lose. If they fully understand that for the most part, we can't win without X, then you can force things. I agree with you. Sanders shouldn't have ran. I don't know, man. You guys call me naive on this point. I don't know if I'm naive. Maybe I'm giving him too much the benefit of the doubt. I looked at it as he was in a tough spot. Garnome, I agree. He says, I agree they could very well have been the party, however, it would take decades for them to be replaced. They're woven into the legal infrastructure. The Democratic Party is nothing about corporatists. Yeah, you're right. Which is why they lose. Which is why they lose. Whatever took place in 2008, that mask came off. It was like, it was almost as if seeing Sanders and seeing everybody else showed the disparity between those two things. So it's like, well, this guy is the real thing, and if this guy's the real thing and all these people are against him, what the hell are these other people? What are they? Just by virtue of him being earnest, they looked miserable. They looked absolutely bad. So Obama comes out with this hope and change thing, gets in office and does squat. Bernie Sanders comes up, for the last 40 years, has actually pushed something, believed in that thing, shown he believed in it, people responded. But in people responding, you can see the disparity between those two things. If anything, if you want to look for something that destroyed the party, I'd argue that that destroyed the party. That destroyed the party. Hillary Clinton, let's be honest. Hillary Clinton's point about Sanders, it's absurd to a degree. What she doesn't want to say is seeing the disparity between those things is the thing that made her lose. It wasn't Sanders by himself. There were 8 years of Obama. 8 years of Obama. In the beginning, they had the House and the Senate, meaning they could have done whatever they wanted to do. Democrats had full power to do whatever. What do they want to do? And what did they do? They passed the right-wing healthcare plan. Do you realize it's 2017 and we're still talking about healthcare? Still talking about healthcare. I gotta be honest, I'm feeling somewhat self-conscious. There are the people around me, it feels weird. Hello? Yeah, man, it's, look, however people want to see Obama's presidency, there is one particular point where you need to thank him for. Failing. You need to thank him for failing. This is somewhat of a reverse thank you. Yeah, this is somewhat of a reverse thank you. If you're going to say hope and change, if you're going to be in office for 8 years and you have free reign to do what you want to do, and you don't do it, and people can look at your works and they can say these are the things that this person did and it doesn't line up, that's a problem. You then see somebody else who's actually real, legitimate, and is trying to push on those things, and you see the disparity between those two things. The moment you see the disparity between those two things, you're stuck with this thing of, oh, the guy's not real, this other guy is. At least in regards to what they believe in and what they're trying to accomplish. One is just saying it, the other guy actually believes it. Disparity, that's kind of what I'm trying to hit at. The disparity between those things is the thing that kind of shows you the reality of it. If that makes sense. Yeah, if that makes sense. The illusion is gone, man. That's all I'm saying. This idea of a politician getting up and being polished and everything else, people don't want it. They see through it. There's too much information floating about to see what's going on behind the scenes. Yeah, the contrast is revealing. Yeah. Alright, guys. My wife is here somewhere. Yeah, I'm still waiting on her. So. Don't forget T-Tip and the Big Brother TSO. Right there. T-Tip. So, for me, the big reveal was a Trans-Pacific Partnership. TPP. This is going on in multiple countries. Trans-Pacific Partnership. There's another one called T-Tip. I think there's another one called TISA. All of these things are called trade deals. The language for this stuff is extremely duplicitous. It's not a trade deal. It's not a trade deal at all. Those things are undercutting regulations that are going on. So think of it from the standpoint of countries have certain trade regulations, certain things in their country dealing with maybe environmental regulations, worker regulations, all of these other things. The trade deals undercut those things all throughout the world, meaning in one country after the next. It's not trade. Most of the stuff is just regulation. So there's a massive difference between this idea of this is a trade deal versus this is some kind of regulation that it's going into this kind of corporate dominance or corporate influence. Obama came out saying that this was the most progressive trade deal in the history of trade deals. That is fucking insane. That's fucking insane. They would have literally undermined the laws in this particular country. It's fascinating. Yeah, it's fascinating. They would have absolutely undermined the laws in this country. The idea that he was pushing something like that and then coming out saying the exact opposite of what it was is amazing. I think it was New Zealand, Australia, one of those places. The prime minister came out saying that the deal wasn't supposed to be exposed. Yeah, the deal wasn't supposed to be exposed until 4 years after it was passed. Think about that. They're making deals with us, our country. Don't reveal the deal. And the deal is only supposed to come through 4 years after the deal is passed. When somebody asks about, hey, are we going to get a seat at the table? Obama was like, I am your seat at the table. It's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. If Donald Trump did one thing right, it was to kill the Trans-Pacific Partnership. That was the one thing that he definitely did right when he came into office. Those things are scams. Those things are absolutely scams. From the standpoint of workers, whether people realize it or not, they are losing power in this situation. In our system, you have a finite amount of time to get your political system right before this gets worse. Think of it from the standpoint of, let's say, the 40s, the 50s, the 60s. You still had trade. You didn't necessarily have this kind of globalization that we have now. Say for the moment, you have 1 million workers in a country. Sandbox. Just conceptual. 1 million workers. You have X amount of jobs for those millions of workers. A trade deal comes up where those people now can export those jobs or export that work outside the country. Now, with 1 million jobs, you have a certain amount that those people can push on because you have a certain amount of pressure on the jobs themselves. Meaning, these people need somebody to work these jobs, in which case they're going to have to pay these people more because they need skills and everything else, and there's a finite amount of workers to fill those jobs. The moment that you expand the playing field, so now it's not just workers in the United States, it's workers in China, Malaysia, Mexico, all these other countries. Now the American workers are competing with people around the globe. The people around the globe that they're competing against is taking a quarter of what the American worker was doing for that job. So now that job can be shipped overseas, where there's less regulation in regards to jobs and workers and everything else, less protections. And they're going to fire that American worker. That American worker is going to have to find a job somewhere else. The question is where? Now, as you kind of rip out the guts of the American infrastructure and everything else and move those things abroad, you have this situation of joblessness. People looking for jobs. Corporations are trying to make profit. Businesses try to make profit. One of the ways to try to make profit is cutting down the cost of labor, which means pushing down wages. Those trade deals are a way to push down wages. I can ship this job into another country. I can pay those people $1 or $2, where I was paying an American worker 15 or 16 bucks. Who gives a shit what happens to the American worker? I care about my profits, and I want to make more profits from this engagement. The Trans-Pacific Partnership, TTIP, all of those deals was just an undercutting of the democracies of each of those countries, including our own. And before people say, oh, dude, that can't happen, it happens now. It happens now. If I'm not mistaken, I think it's the World Trade Organization. Mexico took the United States to court because we were using nets for our tuna, dolphin-safe tuna. Mexico said we can't necessarily compete with American workers doing that, and the United States was taken to court. Congress passed a law changing our laws to accommodate that trade deal. If you don't think that the Trans-Pacific Partnership would do something similar, you're insane. That trade deal is not a trade deal. Look up WikiLeaks. WikiLeaks is the deal on the thing. It's amazing. It's amazing what they were trying to push. It was a complete coup d'etat. Absolute coup d'etat. Alright, guys. I will talk to everyone later. I like these little check-ins. I might try to do these more often. It's one of those things you're sitting here and be like, yeah, TTIP was much worse. The override national sovereignty TC. Yeah, it is. It is. I'll tell a card. Alright, guys. Have a good one.